welcome to this video. I'm going to try my best actually to do one video a week moving forwards, just to cover bits and pieces that we don't necessarily cover either in the podcasts or of course on all of the written subjects that we write about. A couple of main things going on at the moment. I think a lot of the topic is Iran, Israel. Is the USA going to get involved? And there was a podcast recorded earlier on in the week with Dr. Anis Al-Haji. I highly recommend you go and listen to that because he is an expert in oil, gas, and Middle East relations. And he raised a couple of key points that I don't think many people have necessarily thought about. Number one was with USA getting involved in Iran, Iran's trump card, pardon the pun, is that they could look to close the Strait of Hormuz, which is one of the main shipping channels in the world. Now, of course, this is what mainstream media is talking to us about. If Iran closes this, that's it. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. What Dr. Al-Haji pointed out was a couple of things. Number one, that if Iran does close or wants to close the Hormuz Strait, then it actually shoots itself in the foot because a lot of its oil exports, especially oil, they go to China. And he's convinced that Iran doesn't want to annoy China. So that's point number one. Point number two is on the Iranian side of the Hormuz Strait, it's quite shallow. So on the deeper side, where a lot of the shipping happens, that's actually on the Omani side, so the country of Oman. So if Iran wanted to try and close the Strait of Hormuz, then it would have to have words with Oman about that. And he's convinced that Oman wouldn't want to, again, shoot itself in the foot. So his point was, do not necessarily believe what the mainstream media is telling you. That was his main point. Secondly, on top of that, and again, looking at the bigger geopolitical aspect, and again, what I'll do is with the post that comes with this, I'll put a map in, just in case you're not familiar with where Iran sits in the world. The second point that he made was that if you look at where Iran is and look at the Caspian Sea, there are 5 countries that border the Caspian Sea. You have Iran, Azerbaijan, you have Russia, you have Kazakhstan, and you have Turkmenistan. So if you know your history, you'll know, Soviet Union and so forth, you'll know that basically Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and so forth, were part of a broader empire back in the day. So Dr. Al-Haji's point was, if you think that Russia and indeed China are going to allow any form of US-backed regime to succeed in Iran, then you've got another thing coming. Because again, look at the Caspian Sea, look at where it borders. I'm just looking at the map now. I'll put it on the post with this video. If you think that Russia is going to allow that in any way, shape or form, that's not going to happen. And then on top of that, if you then look again at where Iran is and look at where China is, and then, of course, access to the rest of the Middle East and, of course, Europe, again, are the Chinese going to allow a US-backed regime in Iran? The chances are that it's not going to happen. The third thing that Dr. Al-Haji also pointed out was that if you look at the history of Iran in the last 100 years, there have been major regime changes, but they've come from within. So if people want regime change, and we shouldn't say that loosely, because that involves a lot of potential war, effort, and a lot of very nasty things. But if you want a regime change in Iran, it has to come from within. It has to come from the people. You're not going to get it anyway else, or any other way, sorry. Because again, looking at the size of Iran, if you're going to force yourself to take over Iran, you've got to occupy Iran. And again, geographically speaking, that's very difficult because you've got the Caspian Sea to the north, So again, you're going to have Russia, the other side of the Caspian Sea, and so forth, and its allies. I would imagine in Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan as well. And again, if you look at the bottom of Iran, and again the Persian Gulf, Gulf of Oman, Strait of Hormuz. Again, it's not just Iran. Within the Persian Gulf, the Arabian Gulf, you're looking at Kuwait. You're looking at a very small section of Iraq as well. You're looking at Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman as well. And if you know your history, you know that Saudi Arabia and Iran don't necessarily get on very well for a multitude of reasons that I won't go into on this video. So the point being, if you're going to try and force a regime change in Iran, and I'm not saying that we should, by the way, I'm not advocating for that. I'm just stating what Dr. Al-Haji was talking about. If you're going to force a regime change in Iran, then you're either going to have to take over Iran, which is going to be very difficult because of its size and its general geography, or it's going to have to come from within. And out of those two options, if such a thing were to occur, it's probably going to come from within. Now, do I think that the USA getting involved in Iran, even more than they are already? I don't think that's a good thing, personally. I think that's very dangerous. Again, in the next week or two, Tom Luongo of Gold, Goats and Guns is back on the Contrarian Capitalist podcast. He is way more tuned to these events than most people out there are. I'll go into depth with him about what's going on. Also, next week, Simon Hunt is going to be on the podcast as well. Again, he's very good at geopolitics. I will ask him about what's going on as well. But at the time of recording, that's where we stand. Trump has said that he is going to decide in the next couple of weeks whether the USA is going to get involved. I would personally hope that that's not the case, because if they get involved, then given what Europe does, America says jump, Europe says how high, that would probably mean that Europe will get involved. And again, that could lead to, all sorts of bad things happening moving forwards. I'll put a link to the latest BBC article about Trump and what he said. I'll also put a link in about will the UK get dragged into an Iran-Israel conflict? My answer to that would be yes, but you can read it for yourself anyway. And for those wondering why I normally cite the BBC an awful lot for my articles, it's because I don't like them, to be perfectly honest with you. I try and read what they say and then try and do the opposite. Again, I just do not find them that good. But as a source of basic information, and I use that term loosely, they are okay. So I say I'm not a fan. I just like doing the opposite of what they tell me to do. That being said, talking of the UK, I'm surprised that to all my brothers and sisters over there in the UK, I'm surprised you've not died of heat, because of course the minute it gets slightly warm in the UK, and then all the warning signs have got to come out, and we're all going to die of climate change. We're all going to die of 32 degrees Celsius, even though 15, 20 years ago it was 32 degrees in the summer. Because it's 2025, of course, it's got a different meaning and different connotation. All I can say is that if you live in a warm area, live in a hot area, same rules apply. Drink loads of water, wear a hat, and protect yourself. That's all I can say to that. I'm not going to get involved in the climate change debate. Absolutely pointless as far as I'm concerned. But again, I'll put a couple of links in there as well, just for articles to read. If we have a look at everything that's been happening on the Contrarian Capitalist in the last week, you will notice in the headline to this video, I put in there a special offer. So what I mean by that is that in the last week, the Contrarian Capitalist has reached or surpassed 2,500 subscribers, which is a monumental achievement. So I'd like to thank everyone watching. If you are a subscriber, if you're not, please do subscribe. And because of that, every milestone I like to celebrate with a special offer. So there is a 25% off for life special offer. It's valid until Tuesday, the 24th of June. Again, if you're watching this live, I appreciate you'll probably have to go to the post, because I'll put the button in there to get 25% off for life. That's off annual subscriptions and monthly subscriptions. And again, I plan on running the channel for a very, very long time. And that offer will apply for life. So 25% off for life. Again, the button will be in the post that comes with this video. Looking at a couple of other posts, just a summary of things that have been released or are being released this week. I mentioned the podcast with Dr. Anis Al-Haji. I'd recommend you listen to that. Also worked on a 2-part post with the Uranium Investor, and we looked at, is the UK heading towards a race/civil war? And we highlighted things such as natural gas and energy issues within the UK, looked at jail shortages as well, and we looked at race, immigration, and religion. And it was a very interesting yet complicated 2-piece to write. What I think has made it extra interesting is that the chap, and I won't reveal his actual name, there's no point, or I don't want to, and he hasn't given me permission to, I should say. So, who the chap that writes the Uranium Investor is a Muslim. So the fact that we are able to work together and to come up with what we've come up with, because we're both thinking along a similar line, I think that's important to highlight, because apparently he got a bit of a backlash or a lot of questions about Islamophobia and so forth when part 1 was released. Part 1 is already out. Part 2 will be out tomorrow. And I thought it'd be useful to make the point that the chap that does write Uranium Investor is a Muslim. So again, the fact that he's coming up with a lot of the text as well, he thinks the same, he feels the same. Just wanted to put that in place. I thought that was a fair thing to say, to be honest. Part 2's out tomorrow. Then in terms of other podcasts or other posts, actually, today on Thursday 19th of June, I released also an updated deep dive into platinum. So the original deep dive was done back in April, and the price of platinum has, I'm not going to say it's gone parabolic, but it has increased quite a lot. It's up by about 28% in the last 3 months at the time of recording. So I decided to update that article. That's out for all subscribers. Again, you can find links to that on contrariancapitalist.substack.com. And the other podcast that was recorded, it's been released to paid subscribers, and that's with Will Tanner of the American Tribune. We had a very long conversation about bureaucracy and post-colonial race communism and how that is helping to collapse civilization. It was very in-depth. We started by looking at what's going on in the world at the moment, and Will's speciality is looking at British colonialism. That's his forte, so to speak. And we went back in time, looked at things like the Opium Wars between Britain and China, and also looked at modern day, or within the last 100 years, looked at issues that have been in and around the Democratic Republic of Congo, Nelson Mandela and South Africa, and also Rhodesia, or Zimbabwe, as you might know it. I learnt a lot from listening to Will, and there was a couple of cold, hard truths in there. So, for example, you might have known or think that Belgium went in and completely destroyed the Congo, because that's what we've been told in our history books. Whereas actually, although the Belgians weren't perfect, actually, when you look at it and look what happened, I think the people of the Congo appreciated the system that Belgium put in place. Now, I'm not speaking for everyone in the Congo. Differing ideas are available, but the way that Will articulates it and gets his points across are very important. There's also a lot of very interesting information about Nelson Mandela. Again, I've had to go away and study what I thought I knew and rewrite what I thought I knew. So it's very eye-opening. That's out to paid subscribers at the moment. That will be out to the general public again on Friday, the 20th of June. I apologize if you're already a subscriber, because you're going to get 3 emails tomorrow. You're going to get part 2 of the race/civil war with Uranium Investor. You're then going to get Will Tanner and the podcast that we done. And then you're also going to get the weekly wrap at the end of the day. I don't like sending out 3 emails a day, but it's just the way the cards have fallen this week. In terms of other things that have been going on, again, just have a quick look at the markets. I'm just bringing up a couple of basic charts at the moment. Let's have a look at what's going on. I'm just going to stick to commodities for now. I'd highly recommend you check out the weekly wrap, because that's the newsletter that looks at the commodities. But if we look at West Texas Intermediate WTI crude, again on the day, that is up just under 1%, which is fine. Gold's traded at about 33.70. That's US dollars. Silver had got to just over 37. It's retraced a bit now. It's currently trading at around 36.40. And just quickly bringing up platinum, if I can spell platinum properly, let's have a look at what that is doing. Platinum has taken a bit of a tumble today, actually, down at the moment $12.40, around about 1%. Again, I wouldn't be concerned by any of these numbers, to be perfectly honest. And the reason for that, well, I say platinum's down on the day, even for the week, it's still up about 5.7% so far on the week. I'm not concerned by any of these numbers purely because the other two key events we have seen from this week would be that the Federal Reserve under stupid Jerome Powell, and again, I'm using the bunny ears because that's what Trump called him, he decided to hold firm. So the rates in the US are the same. And no surprise, the Bank of England held at 4.25 as well. That decision was made today. So it's no surprise to see that happening. Again, if we look at the playbook of what's happened before and what's going to happen again, we're going to look at the following. We are going to see more war. And I don't like saying that, but I'm here to be realistic. We're going to see more war. And again, we've got theatres of war opening up across the globe. I see that even the Chinese fleet were doing drills just off of Japan, apparently, in the last day or two as well. So I'm not saying China's going to go to war with Japan, but again, they're flexing their muscles to show their superiority over that part of the world. Obviously, we've seen Iran, Israel, that's going to continue, I think, for a while. Again, if the USA decides to get more involved, that's probably going to drag Europe into it. Certainly, I would imagine it will drag the UK into it as well because, the EU and the UK are America's bitch, to be fair, at the moment. Or, again, you could argue that the UK is playing all of its cards. That wouldn't surprise me. I'm going to speak about that with Tom and Awongo next week. So all these theatres of war are opening up. And again, if theatres of war are opening up, what happens? You might need to spend on defense or things like that. If you're going to do that, what happens? Well, then you are printing more currency. If you're printing more currency, that is going to create inflation. I was listening to a podcast the other day between Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, and Lawrence Lepard. And apparently 40% of the dollars in circulation were printed into circulation within the last 5 years. That is a ridiculous number. Absolutely ridiculous number. So if you think that we're going to go to war and you think that governments or central banks are going to try and print their way out like they have done before, or you might get a lot of QE from the Federal Reserve, if you think that's going to happen, then the chances are that is going to create inflation, because if you are devaluing the currency, number one, that intrinsically pushes up the price of commodities and other things. So number one, that creates inflation. Secondly, if you then look at gold, silver, and again, platinum, which has been on a tear in the last month, if you look at that, then the price of those commodities is going to go up because the currency is being devalued. So they work hand in hand. So if you think all of that's going to happen, and again, not financial advice, I always say this is not financial advice, I would urge that you look at gold. I would urge that you look at silver. I would urge that you look at platinum as well. If it's me personally, I'm looking at silver first. I'm then looking at platinum. I'm then looking at gold. And again, if you think that war's going to happen, if you think that governments and central banks are going to devalue currencies, i.e. they're going to print more, that's going to lead to inflation because you're going to have more of the same fiat currency chasing the same or fewer amount of goods. So again, if you change the supply and demand remains the same or goes lower, let me get my economics right. You change the supply and the demand changes as well. Then again, just economics 101, it's basically you're going to get inflation. I've done a really bad job at explaining that, but basically you're going to get inflation. So if you're going to get inflation, what is a good protection hedge? Gold, silver, platinum, especially gold and silver, they are true money. Platinum's doing very well at the moment. If it was me, I'd be looking at silver, platinum, and gold. A couple of that's down to ratios, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm a keen believer in the gold and silver ratio and platinum to gold ratio. But ultimately, if you're going to protect yourself, protect your family, and hedge yourself, then they are the places to be. Again, don't take that as investment advice. Do your own homework. And I know someone will ask me about Bitcoin, or will put a message about Bitcoin. I do not know a ridiculous amount about Bitcoin to be able to sit here with authority and say X, Y, and Z. What I can say and what I can share is a recent chart on the In Gold We Trust report. And I put this in the platinum piece that I spoke about earlier. If you look at a gold price by the end of 2030, if you look at the gold price of $5,000, which is quite conservative and achievable, if you look at that, then just based on a gold and Bitcoin market cap ratio, so the Bitcoin cap being half of what gold is, if you look at that, then that would indicate at $5,000 gold, that would indicate that a price of a Bitcoin should be around $925,000. That's research according to the team over at Incrementum AG, the In Gold We Trust report. $925,000 potentially for a Bitcoin would mean that at the moment, given where Bitcoin is, that would be in what, an eight and a quarter, 8.5 times what it is at the moment. So there is that argument that Bitcoin, certainly moving forward, certainly within the next 5 or 6 years, could be the best performing asset class. Again, I'm trying to get people onto the show that know way more about Bitcoin than I do. I can only go on the research and the readings that I see on social media. So I'm hoping that all of that helps. Again, a lot going on. I will put all of the links into the post that comes with this live video. Substack takes a little bit of time to sort the video out. So there will be a post that comes with this video a little bit later on today. In that post, I'll put links to all the various articles. I'll put a map of Iran and the Caspian Sea and the Strait of Hormuz in there as well. And as mentioned in the main headline for this video, because of reaching 2,500 subscribers, by the way, thank you to everyone that is a subscriber, follower, paid subscriber, founding member. I really do appreciate it. It's a 25% offer for life on all monthly subscriptions, all annual subscriptions. That button for that will be in the post that comes with this video. That offer is valid until Tuesday, the 24th of June, 2025. And that's just a way of saying, thank you for believing in the channel, for continuing to get value, and for continuing to like all the podcasts, like all the content, and of course, sharing all the content. If you're wondering what you get, by the way, for the paid subscription, you get access to all the podcasts first. They always get released to paid subscribers first, and then you get access to all of the newsletters as well, and it opens up the full archive too. So again, look for the button that will come with the post with this video. Look out for the weekly wrap tomorrow, part 2 with the uranium investor, also the podcast with Will Tanner. And in the forthcoming week, so next week, again, we've got Simon Hunt on, Bob Coleman of Idaho Volts is going to be on as well, and Tom Luongo too. So plenty of great podcast guests coming up. Have a fantastic day. Have a really good weekend as well, and see you soon.